Alright, the Mongols, the largest empire of all time. So it's kind of dark here, but this line that goes all the way out here stretches from Kievan Rus, goes down through the Islamic Empire, down through South Asia, conquers China and Korea. All this area is controlled by the Mongols. They are kind of the exception. Every rule you can talk about in civilization, they are the exception to it. They break the rules. So the Mongols, much of what we know about them comes from a guy named Marco Polo, who was actually a Venetian. He came from Europe, and he wanted to trade with them, but he wrote about his travels, kind of like Ibn Battuta from the Islamic Empire. But he traveled kind of from Venice throughout the Mongol Empire and wrote about it as he went. But, again, the Mongols are the largest empire of all time. They conquered Central Asia, the Islamic Empire, the Delhi Sultanate in South Asia, Kievan Rus, and China, the Song Dynasty in China. Now, the Mongols were basically led, they didn't have one centralized government like China did. They had independent clans called hordes. And these hordes would unite together to go conquer somewhere else. But then they would each had control of their own territory. And we'll see a map of their horde in just a minute. They also have an elected leader called a Khan. So even though they're sort of like, there's going to be some bad things about them, there's also going to be some good things about them, like they elect their leaders. Women are also allowed a significant amount of rights and can participate in these kind of local councils and are in control of the hordes. So here we have the Mongol Empire in its entirety. We have the Khanate of Great Khan, the Chagatai, I'm not going to try Khanate, the Khanate of the Golden Horde, and the Il Khanate over here. And then you also have them ruling the Delhi Sultanate for a little while, which isn't really displayed on this map. And here you can kind of see their campaigns of conquest as they went and took over territory. Now, the Mongols, the reason why they were able to take over such a large empire was because of their military strategy. They had a large cavalry. Just about every single Mongol had multiple horses. So when one horse got tired, they'd hop on another one and they would ride for even further. So they always had a fresh horse so they could travel very fast. They had great archers. Huge things on archery, but even so much that they were so good that they could shoot arrows while riding a horse. Okay? They also worked in very organized units as they fought. They had spies, large assault weapons. You can see these kind of catapults as they attacked a Chinese city down here. They used strategy. A lot of times they used trickery when they were fighting. So like, for example, when people would come in and attack a city, then they would pretend like they were lost. And they would run away. And all the people in the city were like, yeah, we defeated the Mongols. And they go out to like finish them off. And all those Mongols that are retreating lead them to a larger group of Mongols. Lead them out of the city away from their defenses. So that's one example of strategy. But they often use merciless destruction. What I mean by that is they killed everyone, destroyed everything when they went to a town. If the town fought them, they just wiped out everybody. And so people heard rumors of this and were so fearful of their destruction that rumor passed that when they were coming, you didn't really even have time to get your army ready. So if you fought, you were destroyed. But even if you didn't fight, the Mongols still might come through and just kill and destroy a bunch of people. Now, the Mongols are united for the first time by a guy named Genghis Khan. He had a pretty rough childhood, but he comes back and he impresses everybody with his military skills. Here you can kind of see one picture of Genghis. And here's another picture down here, a much more fearsome looking Genghis. But his military skills, his alliances sort of united them together. But he created a very strict set of laws. He practiced legalism. But again, he's the exception to the rule because his set of strict set of laws is going to be good for the people because it's going to reduce crime. And less crime is going to result in increased trade along the Silk Roads, which starts a time period called the Pax Mongolica, where there's not really any fighting, and there's a lot of prosperity going on because everybody's trading. Now, when the Mongols took over China, they started a new dynasty, okay? And it's called the Yuan dynasty. So here we can actually see on the map, here is them controlling, the Khanate of the Great Khan controlled China, but it's called the Yuan dynasty. And one big famous ruler was Kublai Khan, one of the Khans who ruled the Yuan. But he was very much into kind of establishing large trade networks and things like that. But he always acted superior to the Chinese and made other Mongols out to be superior. He made merchants more important than scholar gentry, which is the opposite of opposite of what normally goes on. They also gave women more rights, which a Neo-Confucian Chinese person would not like, and they did not help peasants. All of these things make people kind of mad at the Yuan dynasty, especially Chinese. So the Mongols actually eventually declined. They're really great at conquering and taking over, and they created this time of peace called the Pax Mongolica. But after they took over, they weren't very good at ruling. Okay, they were bad rulers, bad bureaucrats. They couldn't govern very well. They often caused large famines because they just destroyed crops, didn't promote or didn't help peasants out, so they caused famines. They spread the Black Plague, which we've talked about in Europe, this kind of devastating disease. And so people started to break away. Ivan III of Kievan Rus breaks away and frees Kievan Rus from the Mongols. The Ming dynasty rebels and starts a new dynasty in China. And Temuri Lang goes through and kind of conquers all Islamic territory and reestablishes the Islamic Empire. And the fall of the Mongols is really the end of the post-classical period. So that is it for the Mongols, all the kind of big things about the Mongols.